That's it. We're online for our last Twitch episode of this season. Don't panic. Not last one ever. We're getting renewed for a season 2, like we're a sitcom on NBC. We are, I say NBC, I think that's an American television broadcasting network. So Alex, how's it going? Ready for the last episode?
Yes, I've moved my desk. I decided mid meetings yesterday to face the wall instead of have my bookcase that's been a pain point of trying to get it to line up correctly. So we're against the wall now. I just got my coffee and I just watched a little bit of the Olympics. Have you watched any of the Olympics?
I've watched a bit. You think I would with all the sports that I do, but I've watched a bit of the weightlifting, a bit of the taekwondo. But it's on at like a rubbish time. Obviously, it's on in Tokyo, so it's on a bit of a difficult time to see things. But in the weightlifting group chats I'm in, it's just constant. Everyone's telling me what's going on, so I don't even need to watch it. I'm just getting all the feedback across that, which is helpful.
And some background for those of you who don't know Steph, she and her, like, I don't know when she finds spare time, but lifts. And so if you want to follow her, you can follow Lift Like a Nerd to get some solid content there. But when we come back for next season, you know, I know that AWS helped with some of the streaming and was able to be a part of the Olympics this year. And so we should talk about some of the optimization that went down for that when we come back for season 2.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I'm going to write that up. And so just to throw that out there, for season 2, we have some great things in the pipeline. So we're going to do a deeper dive on Compute Optimizer, hopefully. We're going to go more into detail about storage. So something we haven't really spoken about at all, but there's obviously all different types, when you should use the different tiers, when you have different things like different types of volumes, so EBS, when you have GP2, GP3, and try and do some deep dives into that specifically. We've also got some stuff we want to talk about migrations, because I know a lot of you are moving to the cloud and want to think about how to be cost aware when you're doing that. And a couple of other bits on Spot. Again, another thing we haven't really covered, which is a great way to save money. And savings plans and RIs. I'm actually shocked that we went an entire season without covering one of the big things. So yeah, all things to look forward to.
And Steph and I's team recently grew, and we have some people on the team that have done some really awesome content on RIs and savings plans and the kind of things that you should be asking yourselves before you go down that path. So I'm really excited for that to come in as well. And I'd also challenge you guys, we love the feedback. I mean, it makes us feel very special when we get our emails. So to costoptimization@amazon.com. Follow us on LinkedIn, on Twitter, all the questions we listen to. I think we've responded to just about everyone. Even if you're internal to AWS, tell us what you want to hear.
Yeah.
We love the off the wall ideas and getting to push what we would normally think of.
Yeah, definitely. And just thank you for all the feedback you've given already. And if there's anything you want us to focus on, if you want to mention it in the chat today, always bring up comments and we'll try and answer them as we go. But yeah, if there's anything you're looking for and you think, oh, I really wish they covered this, then let us know. So yeah, just keep in contact, guys, over the hiatus. So we'll be back, I think it's the 2nd of November. So mark it in your calendars. We will be back then. So let's kick off with today's episode. So welcome everyone again to the Keys to AWS Optimization, the show where we share stories, concepts, and solutions to help you unlock your cost optimization at AWS. My name is Steph Gooch. I am a commercial architect at AWS. I'm running up to my 11th month here, so almost a year. I can't believe it's been that long working with Alex. And what I do generally day to day is help customers save money where I can. So I look after telco customers across Europe, just helping them cut costs.
And my name is Alex Head, and I head up the optimization team for all of our strategic industries. So get to work with people like Steph day to day and helping our customers save money and really become more efficient and aware of what all levers they can pull to do that.
Awesome. And welcome everyone in the chat. As always, please comment, ask questions. We want to hear from you and make this interactive conversation. So today, what we thought would be a good kind of finish off to the series was for me and Alex to kind of think about some of our favorite customer stories from the last couple of months. So as I said, we work with lots of different customers, and so we'll be sharing that. So I'll kick off and start with one of my telco customers who shall remain nameless for today's conversation, so my telco customer. Hopefully they'll know who they are, and I'm very proud of all the work that they've done. So I'm going to go through a couple of pick and mix bits of things that we went through and hopefully share some stories across that. So this customer, I spoke, oh, go on, Alex, sorry.
I want to preface here, I do not know this story. So when I'm probing in questions, it is truly me trying to figure out and learn from Steph as well. So I'll kind of ask as we go along.
Yeah, and one of the best times, and you'll always see, we haven't prepped we haven't rehearsed this, so Alex will throw me a curveball and I'll try and answer on the spot, and I'll do the same thing for her. So this customer, I think we started working together quite a few months ago now, and they're quite a large telco customer. And when we started speaking, they were so excited to cut costs. They'd spent quite a lot, and they were just like, okay, we are looking for any way to save money. Now, some of the different customers I speak to, some are kind of like, yeah, we want to charge back or we want to save better costs. These guys, they really committed to the idea, and they wanted to hear everything that I had to say about cost optimization, which luckily, as you can tell, I love to talk. So that was quite a lot. So we went down a couple of different paths. We did the classic review, the low hanging through. And this is one thing that I think we will probably say to recommend to all of you is try and look for those quick wins first to kind of get the ball rolling. So where can you save money starting off? Could you move from GP2 to GP3 and save kind of 20% of your storage costs? Could you find some intelligent tiering opportunities to move things down so that Amazon could take care of looking after your S3 storage for you? Have you got any elastic IPs that are floating around that are unattached to any instances? They're my biggest bugbear, that they waste money because they're probably not being used at all. Alex, you're on mute. Oh, that's the first time.
That's the first time. Dang it. So wait, quick question on that. How do you find those? Like, that's one of the low-hanging fruit pieces that I haven't touched on as much. I know that you jumped straight to it, but where do you look to find those? And how did you look for this customer?
So the EBS or the Elastic IPs?
Elastic IPs.
Elastic IPs. So the easiest way to do that is to literally go into your console, look on the EC2 section, click on IP addresses, and in there, there'll be a kind of, like when you have instances that are kind of running off on, or EBS volumes that are attached, unattached, Elastic IPs have the same information. So you can see whether they're attached to an EC2 or not. So it's very simple to look through that list and see which one of those are connected to an EC2 and which one of those are just there costing you money.
So is there risk if they're not attached to just deleting? Like, is there something that you should double check first?
Yeah, I would recommend. So if you're in production, as always, don't dive in. We went on this last week with Bryce a bit. Was like, if you're in production, don't just do things immediately and change stuff. Always a good caveat. But often, if your Elastic IP address, the only reason it would be a risk is if you've chosen that IP address and you've hard coded it into some kind of application somewhere, and at that time maybe you're somehow changing your instance underneath it, and it's become unattached for like a minute, and then you're going to reattach it. So it's often just something to be aware of. The way I like to look at it is how long has that thing been unattached for? And the way that you could do that is by reviewing things like your trusted advisor recommendations. They have Elastic IPs unattached in them as well. So you could look at that, and that will kind of say how long it's been unattached for, rather than you just looking in the console. Or you can check regularly. So I have reports that I would run in my old accounts where I would pick up every time how all the Elastic IPs that are unattached, and then review them and say, well, that one hasn't been attached for a month. Clearly no one's using it, and get rid of it.
Got it. All right. Sorry, detour. I was just...
No, that was a great question.
I haven't jumped in there.
No, love it. Awesome. So like I said, EBS volume is another one, a thing to look out for. I'll post, if I can find it, the blog we talk about. We often talk about a lot of the blogs that people in the team have written, but one of them has a bit about saving money by moving from GP2 to GP3 when the circumstances are good. So I think it's when it's less than a terabyte of storage, then you can take advantage of the savings. So just throwing this up there. So GP3 is 20% cheaper than GP2, I believe. Please read the blog post and just double check my workings. But this is quite an easy win. So if you're using less than a terabyte of storage, you can swap this over and then start reaping the benefits. So again, this is something that my customer did. They went in, they made the change, and instantly they just dropped in their EBS savings. So again, all these low-hanging fruits. So another one, and then I'll got to make sure that Alex has time to tell her story before I jump into a couple more things.
You're fine.
So we spoke about last week on our episode, and just a caveat for those that are joining us maybe halfway through, we are chatting about some customer stories for the last couple of months. And a lot of the things that I am going to be chatting about, we've covered in our series, and often make sense. They're customer stories, things that I've been working on. And if you want to have a look back at any of our videos on demand, our YouTube channel is Key to AWS Optimization. The link is in the chat. But just search for the Keys to AWS Optimization, because that's a very hard URL to copy. So last week we spoke a bit with Bryce about some different opportunities where you could use AWS services to find different optimizations for EC2. And one thing me and the customer did was we set up Compute Optimizer. So they'd never heard of this before, and they went in and automatically turned it on for all their accounts and started reviewing that data and kind of going through it and seeing where they could find costs. So they were going in and gradually kind of looking at these things and trying different stuff, especially in their development accounts. So recommend kind of going there.
How were they looking and viewing their costs? Were you kind of setting that up for them as they went on, or were they looking at the Kerr Cost Explorer? What was their kind of like basis of viewing these things and investigating these things?
Good question. So I think they commonly started with Cost Explorer, as most people do. That's the basic, well, not basic, it's the kind of easy access thing. You've got it. It's there. You just go and look at it. You don't need to do any kind of heavy work with it. And then I think that they were pulling their cost and usage report data out into their own tool. So when we were getting feedback specifically about where they were making savings and how they were tracking it, they were using their own tool. And a lot of customers do that. You can run your own services. You might have third-party tools, or you can use things like the Cost Intelligence Dashboard and things like that. Just to segue back, I'm just going to throw up a question that just came in. So, are GP3 EBS volumes available on RDS? No, I don't believe so, unless Alex knows any secrets that I don't.
I do not believe so.
No, I don't think so at the moment. But if you have access, you have an account, raise a support ticket, raise a request, and see if we could get this pushed through. We love to hear from customers, Amazon as a whole, not just obviously the show, but we always want to hear what would benefit everybody here. So please feel free to kind of raise those tickets in your support cases, and then we'll hear from you. Maybe that get pushed up the priority list if you get involved. So thank you for asking. All right. So I'm jumping around a bit. I'm going to touch on one thing we mentioned earlier, which was Spot. Now, this customer, I almost said the customer name. This customer, so close. When I say I was kind of helping them say cost optimize, I was working with one business unit, not the entire customer. And that actually made it quite simple because we were focusing on like a small set of accounts. And again, a kind of tip that I think we recommend to do when you start is focus on where you want to save money. So the appetite for cost optimization was really high in this group of about 10 accounts. And then from there, the other people in the organization were like, oh, those guys have saved, they've saved like $200,000. How do we get some of that?
Yeah, a big highlight right there. And it's something that we've talked about in some other episodes, but I know it's kind of, you get that appetite and you want to optimize across your organization. But where we really see success and difference made is when we have kind of that niche of accounts, we can really dive in deep. And then other groups and teams throughout are like, oh, well, if they can do it, we can do it. Which is a different feeling than us just coming in and saying, hey, you should try this out. But when they see success in their own environment and see how it's rewarded when you save money, I feel like it's way increases the adoption across your organization.
Yeah, definitely. And so from that, we started to help other business units. And one thing that we noticed in a different set of accounts who were hosting different set of resources, they were using containers. And one big change they did, and this had nothing to do with me, I have to give props to the account team that did this all before I joined in, was they moved everything to Spot. And so Spot, you can receive, I think, up to 90% savings on your utilization, according to the website. So that's something else to look into. We will be covering Spot next season, so stick around for September, kind of to keep your eyes out for that session. But Spot enabled them to really kind of lower their costs in a dramatic way. And just, they changed nothing because their infrastructure was prepared for it. So I really recommend looking at Spot. And the last thing, before we kind of move into Alex's customer story, which she can actually say the name of, which is nice. She's prepared more than me. is something that we've spoken a lot about on this show, which is Graviton. So I really hope that from these shows, you guys have learned about Graviton, and I'm going to post specifically the episode that we started on Graviton in the chat, because it's something that, and I said this before, I'd never heard of Graviton before I started working at AWS. It was a big revelation for me to get to use it, and the savings that you could get from this. And so the YouTube link below will link you to the episode where we spoke about Graviton, and there's 2 episodes on that, so check that out. But Graviton is a great way to optimize. It's just a different underlying hardware than Intel, which is the standard one that most people use. And I shared this with the customer, and they'd never heard of it. And then they went on a massive project and deep dive into setting this up. Now, we do say it is a bit of a flick of a switch especially when you do a managed service to move to Graviton like RDS, but they wanted to also do it for EC2. So me just showing them this one thing set off a chain reaction internally and started them to think about, okay, how do we do this? So let's set up a project, let's set up pipelines, let's do test. And they did the test environments, they've started doing it, and now they're starting to roll it out. And they're immediately seeing those cost reductions. But I want to emphasize in this point specifically that you do need to go and try it, but sharing this information to your companies, maybe talking to developers in other parts of your business or developers in general, really flag this idea, and you can start that chain reaction in your business.
Yeah, and I also, so the Graviton episodes were some of our most popular or most watched episodes, especially on YouTube. So when coming into our next season, if there's certain pieces of Graviton that you feel like we didn't touch on or that you want to dive into further, more than happy to do that. And the Graviton team will also be happy to jump back on. I think we left a good impression with them. But the Graviton piece kind of leads into the customer story I wanted to highlight. Now, I cannot take credit for this customer story, but Michael Biddle, who is sometimes on this show and will be back next season, has worked closely with this customer, and you can read an update about them that was released, I believe, at the end of last year, but it's kind of continued to grow and impact. So this is Snap. And as you see kind of in the lower corner, I realize that me pointing doesn't mean that you know where it is. Oh no, Steph's covered me.
I got rid of it.
There, no, there. Those are our Bitmojis, and that is a company that actually Snap acquired. So that I did not know that until I started doing some research into this customer story. But when they acquired them and Bitmoji started being used more on Snapchat, and you saw more of them, and you probably saw them duplicated on other social media platforms, they realized that there was an opportunity to create more like personalized content with your Bitmoji. I know when I was very, very pregnant, I had a very, very pregnant Bitmoji on most of my presentations to just emphasize what I was doing at that time. But I think everyone loved kind of the personalization of it. And they found that over 70% of their users were using Bitmojis and parts of it. So they sought to look at creating more of that content around them, and personalized content, personalized videos with your Bitmoji in them. And I have some notes because I want to make sure that I get it exactly right. But basically, when they started looking at this, they thought we need an efficient and cost-effective way to do this. Bitmoji, when they acquired them, was already using AWS, and Snap was as well. So they started looking at some of the options and some of the EC2 instances used, but they were having a little bit of latency issues in that. And just perfect timing was G4 instances were released while they were looking at this, and they got really excited and decided to test those out before going live. One thing that they did that Steph kind of touched on a bit in her customer story that I want to emphasize to any size company, any size team when looking at new instances or Graviton, they went through and, well, actually, Steph, can you guess what I'm going to say?
They went through a development process? I'm not sure.
So they went through benchmarking with every size.
Should have guessed that.
And G4. So a lot of times, I mean, I would say 90% of the time, Steph and I will go into a customer And one of the first things that we realize is that they've picked an instance size too big for what they need. And yes, you can always go backwards, but that's not as easy once you're like up and running and going and you have production and everything. So one thing that Snap did that was really cool is they went through each size individually to figure out where that sweet spot was and how they could scale up and down with it, and picked their instance type, and then launched their content. And they went with 4XLs, and you can read all about this. Steph posted the link. Suggest, I think there's also a video that comes along with it, but in the end, they got 10x the performance and 36% cost savings. And what a cool way to try something new, which is always going to be one of my favorite stories, is watching customers, think outside the box of, okay, AWS releases all these new cool things. Now let's actually see how we're going to use it.
Yeah.
And I think Graviton in general for the last few months, really for this year, has been a huge win for customers. We've seen such large savings, and it's been really cool because it's not a ton of lift for us.
No, especially those managed services options. As long as you fit that criteria of you're on the right version, then you could just, like I said, flip over. And as long as you're flexible and deal with it, it's just the best. Everyone should be using it. I should go back to my old company and be like, guys, please tell me you're using this now that I've left and start migrating over. But yeah, that's the 36% is a crazy saving. And to think about how big Snap is, like, yeah, I mean, I'm old enough to have a Snapchat account. I make it sound like I'm really old, but I had a Snapchat account. I don't know what the login is anymore.
I tried to log in before this, and I think I locked it because of a password. But Snap has some really cool stories, and they're a great partner of ours. And we get to work a lot with them. Michael Biddle works with them and their teams hands-on. And since this part of their cost optimization journey was a public story, we wanted to make sure to highlight it a little bit and just show kind of that impact of Graviton. Yeah. There's also one other public story from one of our customers that actually mentions one of our team members, cool. Nate Perry. And I will post the link. I did not warn Steph of this, so she's usually armed with the links. But this is really about getting that cost visibility, which really is the first step to all these customer stories we talk about, right? Steph mentioned they went in and they had to look through their data, and this specific story was Airbnb, and they, taking that step to make sure that your teams can see their cost and usage and understand it is going to be the main piece to getting to those savings, the main piece to any customer story we have. And I have it right here. Second. And
just while Alex is getting that, I mean, the one thing we always start with is that cost visibility. We've mentioned the cost intelligence dashboard before, and kudos as well. But it's even as simple as looking at Cost Explorer or getting eyes on the spend is one of the biggest battles that people forget about the costs when they move to cloud. They think it's always going to be cheaper, but you really need to keep your eye on what's going on. There is that link.
There you go. But I mean, overall, I would say the big theme that we see is that Graviton and getting that insights, and kudos and cost intelligence dashboard were huge this quarter. We saw a lot of customers, a lot of really, really large customers moving to that, learning from it. We did do an episode on it, and I think some of the feedback we received is wanting to walk a little bit more in depth through the dashboards, and we definitely have that on the docket for next season. But am I missing stuff? I think, those are the two things I've gravitated to the most these last few months. That's almost as good as your dad jokes. But is there another theme that you've gotten really excited about with your customers?
I think one thing that I'm starting to get really hyped about, and I'm looking forward to doing maybe some more presentations on and diving deep into it in the future, is like not the top spending items. So not EC2s, not S3, not AWS. I don't care about that stuff. I don't care about the top 5 things that you see on Cost Explorer before it goes to others. I care about the others. What's in that green box that just kind of like, oh, it's others, no one cares. What makes up that spend? And so it's things like Lambda, it's things like config, which I've mentioned in a previous episode about kind of monitoring those costs. It's things like CloudWatch, and kind of going into those things and thinking, okay, once we've optimized, so say you have a customer, they've started using Compute Optimizer, they've moved to Graviton, they're scheduling their instances, they've bought savings plans, but they still want to save money. There's always ways that you can optimize. So I'm getting really excited about that. And maybe when I have all my content ready, I'll come and share it with all of you guys next season, fingers crossed. But there's all that kind of stuff that I'm definitely looking forward to.
And we definitely, in these next couple months in between our Twitch seasons, have some exciting things on well-architected labs and blog posts that are coming out. So make sure you're following us on LinkedIn and Twitter to make sure that you can see all that. And you can also sign up to get the external newsletter from our Cost Insights team. We'll make sure that the link is in there as well so that you can keep up to date. And even if, we've got this time in between, always feel free to say, hey, in the future, this would be really cool to talk about. Like Steph said, I'm really excited for the storage piece. That's been really, I think in these last 2 weeks, I think all of our conversations have been concentrated on storage, and the different ways that customers have quickly been able to save on storage for sure. And you said in your customer story that was a part of it too, right?
Yeah, definitely. The whole moving to GP3 thing was massive. But and shout out to John, who we are trying to persuade to come onto the channel. So hopefully he'll see this and he'll want to come on and share his story. And he's built some really cool stuff around using the cost and usage report to see what buckets are being used the most and where you could maybe take advantage of some intelligent tiering or not reduced redundancy that doesn't exist anymore. But and also things like where you're pulling requests, your puts and gets, and trying to track using cost and where you could save money. Because we have things like S3 Lens, which is also a great tool, which you could also do a bit of a deep dive on next season. But really using your curve, which is everyone's bread and butter in the kind of financial world, where they can start to analyze that. So that is something that's going to be coming out and hopefully we'll be able to share going forward.
And it was John's birthday yesterday. So John, if you are listening to us, happy birthday. No pressure here that we're trying to get the viewers to get you to come on. But I think, wow, I can't believe how many episodes have we done? This is number 14. I think it's been a good 14, a good start to the Twitch world for the optics team.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll wrap it up and just say thanks to everyone who's watched, everyone who's emailed. Like as Alex said, please, I'll just throw it up one more time. Please let us know if there's things you want to cover, or if you want to come on as a guest. We would really love to have some customers come on and share their stories, share their tips. Have you used Graviton? Have you taken advantage of this? Did it go well? Did it not go well? We want to know what's going on. And if you've done something, maybe, like I said, one of those random other services that you've looked into and found a really cool way to save money, or something totally different we haven't spoken about. I had a customer talk to me about SageMaker savings, which is a whole new area that we could look into. So yeah, please feel free to email us, customization@Amazon. And 2nd of September, we will be back at the same time, 3:30 in the UK. What time is it where you are, Alex?
It is 10:30 Eastern time, 7:30 Pacific time.
Thank you.
8:30 Mountain. I had it down to a science, but we have our team has 6 different time zones, so I'm trying to get better at knowing where everyone is sitting. But yes, we will be back September. Cool.
And so subscribe to the AWS Twitch channel to get those updates, and subscribe to us on YouTube. And apparently it's 8 Pacific. Someone has commented in the chat about the time. It is going to be
right Pacific, now. It is. But it starts at 7:30. Yeah.
Yeah, don't come on at 8. That's too late.
Yeah.
We already missed. All right, brilliant. Well, have a great month before we speak to you all again, and see you in a month.